Very good afternoon. Welcome to our Vendée Live. It is day 43 on the racecourse. It's Monday, the 21st of December. Southern Ocean weather here in Les Sables d'Olonne in the Southern Ocean in the Pacific. It's more like summer at times. They're dicing with the high pressure. Then the top of the news today is that Louis Burton repaired his mast track at the top of his mast at Macquarie Island. It took him not one, not two, but 3 attempts to climb the top of Burro Valley's mast. The second and third time he had to move the boat to the north of the island, and he actually started the second time and then realised the problem was not fixed. He had to climb a third time, and therefore you can understand Louis Burton was very happy when he sent his video.
Bonjour à tous, deuxième montée, troisième montée en fait, deuxième sous l'île Macquarie. J'espère que vous apprécierez le paysage parce que moi je déteste ça. J'ai essayé de nuit, j'ai pas réussi, je viens de réessayer. Ça a marché, on est au bout de l'île. Va falloir qu'on redescende, je vous montre. On a vu des pingouins sauter tout à l'heure avant de remonter. C'est l'angoisse d'être aussi haut tout seul. C'est le bout du monde. Je sais pas si vous voyez bien le bateau. Ça fait partie des trucs les plus hard que j'ai fait de ma vie de navigateur. Système 3 pour 1 en tête de mât pour remplacer le hook. Ah, j'espère que vous apprécierez aussi. Puis plus bas, un tout nouveau rail de grand voile. Donc maintenant, on va descendre sans se casser la figure. On va renvoyer la GV et on va allumer pour rentrer au sable. Tout de suite.
Well, I don't think we really need the subtitles, but the hardest thing that Louis Burton has done in his sailing life accomplished. He's doing about 16 knots just now. So the high pressure puzzle at the head of the fleet for Yannick Bestaven, Charlie Dallin and Thomas Riong. At the moment it's Yannick Bestaven who's playing chicken with the high pressure system. There may be a chance of an early Christmas present if he can get across the high pressure and into the better breeze. This could be the question we're going to be asking our guest, who is Libby Greenhalgh, 2 times Volvo Ocean Race Navigator, ace meteorologist in her own right. So Libby, we'll come to you in just a second. But let's first of all have a look at the classements, our standings just now at midday. So as I said, Yannick Bestaven leading by 129.3 miles from Charlie Dallin. He's slightly slowed just now is Yannick on Maître 4, doing only about 7 or 8 knots. Charlie Dallin is catching just now, doing 12 knots in second. He's 36.1 miles ahead of Thomas Riong. Riong is doing 11.1 knots. And Boris Herman is in fourth. He is 208 miles behind, but he's doing 16 knots on the 30-minute speed gun. Is Boris. John Lecam is 30 miles behind Boris, and in turn Lecam is 40 miles up on Benjamin Dutreux. Damien Seguin is in 7th. He's 73 miles behind Benjamin Dutreux. Isabel Josh going well in 8th. She is 73 miles behind Seguin, so an interesting little bit of symmetry there, but Isabel Josh going very, very well indeed on MACSF. Giancarlo Padotti in Brisbane Group, an Italian skipper, he is 12.7 miles behind Isabel Josh. So it's still extremely close with the top 9 or top 10. Maxime Sorel a little bit further behind, but going well. He's been quick these past few days and making more and more of an impression. Louis Burton then has dropped to 11th. I say he's doing 16 knots and doing all he can to catch up. Further down the table, Pip Hare is doing well in 17th. She is now 114 miles ahead of Manu Kazan and about 60 or 70 miles ahead of Didac Costa. Didac's been going well over the morning session, shall we say. He's doing 15.8 knots. Further down the table then, Miranda Perrin is in 23rd, and she's over 60 miles ahead now of Alexia Barry, who's been her main rival over the race so far. So we're going to join Libby Greenhalgh. Libby, your thoughts on Pip's race first of all? It's been super impressive.
Yeah, I mean, she's been fantastic to watch, particularly very good at storytelling, which has been really engaging. But yeah, I mean, great job at clinging on to that little group that she's with. particularly after the doldrums, and she's made some strong calls doing some probably what feel like painful jibes south at the time that have really pulled her back to that group, and now actually a little bit ahead of her little group that she's been charging along with. Did you know her before? A little bit, not a huge amount. I've had a few conversations with her, and I sailed on a class 40 that she did a fair bit on before. I had a little play on that as well. So what was that like, sailing with Pip? I didn't actually get to sail with her. I just had a little chat with her about the boat, unfortunately. Would have been nice to sail with her. And what about the race in general? What do you think is going to happen at the front of the fleet just now? We're all on the edge of our seats. Yeah, I mean, the full high pressure system there is not really giving them a massive window through. I think it'll be interesting to see, like you said, whether Yannick can squeeze around the front of it. I mean, when you look at a lot of the models, there's going to be they're going to be hugging that ice gate to try and make that happen, or to try and even move forward. I think it's more likely you'll just see a pretty big compression across the whole front half of the fleet. You might see the top 10 split slightly differently as behind that high pressure you end up with a bit of a cold developing, a bit of a light wind patch that ends up breaking off maybe sort of around 7th, 8th. Those guys might end up getting dropped behind, while the others I think will compress pretty quickly. I mean, a sort of 4-knot boat speed difference in over a couple of days, and suddenly a few hundred miles has gone pretty quickly. Indeed, but it's very different conditions to what you would expect in that part of the South Pacific. Yeah, I mean, that high is pretty low. I mean, pretty low to the south, if you see what I mean. And yeah, normally you'd be expecting to be charging along in some good pressure systems with some good waves. So yeah, they've got a bit of a different situation, and also pretty interesting with how it's kind of moving a bit with them. When you look sort of 3-4 days ahead, it is tracking east with them, so they can't really run away from it that easily. So yeah, I think Christmas Day they could all be having a party together, sort of the top 5. And who's impressed you in terms of their weather and their weather strategy in particular? Anybody stand out for you? I haven't had a real standout, I have to admit. Obviously, early on there were some strong calls with that first fairly strong little low pressure system. You know, and it's a long race, so people playing safe versus pushing into it. I think that's been pretty interesting on that front. I think it'll be interesting as we move on now and those boats get back near each other, and hopefully less sort of issues with damage, and more becoming a lot more strategic and tactical amongst that top group. Whereas I sort of feel in some ways some of the changes have been more about you know, sort of boat damage and people just generally putting a safe strategy in more than anything. I mean, one skipper who's impressed us there has been Boris Herman. Just seems to be keeping it super simple and trying to preserve his boat in the long term. I think we have hopefully got Pip here on board Medallia. Indeed, looking a little bit bedraggled, Pip. Clearly,
yeah, it's a bit wet outside.
So how's it going? We've got Libby Greenhalgh to speak with you.
Hi Libby, how you doing?
Hi Pip, I'm good. I hope you're getting on all right down there. Good to see your smiley face as always.
Yeah. No, it's good. I've just done my jibe of the day, which wasn't in the dark, which is always a bonus. And it's a little bit squally now, but that's good because that's sort of getting me a bit more east. And yeah, just plugging on. Cape Lewin, here we come.
Yeah, and you've had some pretty strong calls with doing some jibe south on a couple of occasions relative to your group. I mean, they must at times feel painful because obviously you're kind of 90 degrees from where you want to go. But I mean, obviously you've had good reason for it, and they've pulled you back into the fleet, so you must be pretty pleased.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a learning process for me, and you know, there's this fine line, isn't there, between how far south you go, you know, how much wind you actually want, and how far off the run line to go, and all that sort of thing. So I'm sort of learning as I go along. But certainly, the last call I made to go south really paid off, and I was quite pleased with that. So I need to work out whatever formula that was and stick to it.
And the conditions out there, I mean, it feels like to me that you're getting just really comfortable with your boat. I mean, just some of the stuff that's coming off your boat demonstrates that, and maybe perhaps pushing it more and, you know, keeping your boat speeds up there and that kind of stuff, and hence you're charging along in your fleet there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm really pleased with the setup that I've got with my 2 zeros and the outriggers. It's a bit of a faff, you know. It's hard work when I change sails, when I change modes. There's a lot to do, you know. It can take me 2 hours to change between modes, but I'm learning where the lines are, and actually the boat likes to be pushed. It's so strong. It's just like a big bull. And it likes to be pushed, and I'm, you know, initially it's quite. There's a lot of anxiety when you're sort of sitting over 20 knots all the time, but I'm getting used to it now.
Yeah, well, it's great to see you charging along, and best of luck going on.
Pip, I've got a little question for you.
I'm loving it.
Pip, what's your kind of margin for error? How close do you go to the ice barrier, the exclusion zone?
That's a good question. I mean, I've been up against it once, and I think the closest I got was about 15 miles off it, I think, and I was just leaving myself enough room so that if I had an issue, I could run off and take sails down or whatever it was, without worrying about crossing it. This corner is going to be an interesting one, but it looks like it's going to be lighter breeze as we go around the corner. So I think it probably depends on what the weather is as to how close I'm going to go.
Okay. And listen, we have a question for you from the internet from Ian, and he's asking, how is your progress going compared to the Ellen MacArthur record that you're hoping to beat? Have you looked?
I have. And we're pretty much neck and neck at the moment.
Fantastic.
Which I'm surprised with, because, you know, a couple of weeks ago when we dropped down into the South Atlantic, it was really slow. We had a really, really slow week. And so I kind of just went, oh, well, you know, I'll just do the best that I can. And actually, it's kind of, you know, the Ellen MacArthur record, of course, it's a benchmark because it's a benchmark for what is good in a boat of this age. But, you know, it's different. It's different years, it's different weather. And so, you know, I'm still, regardless of whether I'm behind it or ahead of it, I'm still going to do the best I can within this race.
Fantastic. Libby, one last question for Pip before we leave her.
You actually stole mine about the ice skate. I was wondering with the jibes and you know, what period of time do you leave as well? Like if you're heading towards the ice gate, like how long does it take you to set up and jibe, I guess, basically, when you talk about your outriggers and stuff like that? That suddenly becomes quite an issue.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So it's I guess it takes me an hour end to end to jibe, and I would never want to rush into it. So I would definitely be jibing with probably an hour to spare on the other side of the jibe. So give myself an hour to, so I guess 2 hours away, effectively.
Yeah.
Good.
Nice.
Okay, Pip, well, it's wonderful to speak with you. We have a little special present for you from all of us here and everybody watching all around the world. You've got to sing, though.
Yeah! Just a little bit.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Never a truer word, Pip. Never a truer word. Anyway, have a good day. We'll speak again in a few days.
Bye. Andy. Bye, Libby. Bye.
So you don't get bigger smiles than that out there at the moment, Libby, do you?
No, I mean, just, yeah, incredible smile. And I think that probably really did make her day. That little bit of music, I can imagine, was probably brightened her up, no doubt, even more.
And a fantastic standard bearer for young women who are maybe thinking about taking on the Vendée Globe in the future, or indeed taking their own challenges on.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's great about this Vendée is the number of women in the race, but also across the kind of, I guess, generations of boats as well, and campaign styles. And I think that's, you know, a real, they're all real flagships for women wanting to go into the Vendée, and seeing that actually, it, you know, the different positions in which you can get a campaign into the race and be part of this, and, you know, make either your first step or your first challenge, and how successful it can be in its own little right.
Great, Libby. Just to come back to you in 1 second, we're going to look at the weather and the situation this Monday. Well, Monday's meteo at the start of this 7th week of racing and the 9th edition of the Vendée Globe. Looking first of all at the pretty much the full fleet from Yannick Bestaven down here on Maitre Coq, just trying to squeeze through underneath this high pressure system. We have this big high which is dominating the weather, certainly for the first 10 boats or so. Then Armel Tripon here, he's running this little front. It's pretty much his own private weather window that he's had for days, and that's allowing him to compress up a little bit towards Maxime Sorel. Looking then at the next group back, well, we're principally looking at Pip Hare here, who's just right down in the south towards the rescue barrier, we're calling it here. It's about 1,100 miles to the south of Cape Lewin, and this straight line is, of course, as we said before, this is about the limit of the Australian rescue services, so that's why it's a straight line. And Pip is just jibing along here on the top of this low pressure system in downwind conditions. Westerly is about 20-25 knots, so she's making good speed. This high pressure system here, which has been here for a long time, that's really providing the weather for these boats back here, and they're in generally in kind of westerly, a bit lighter conditions, and then further back, just Ari Husela, second from the back there, on the top of this low pressure system, and so he should be having quite sporty, but making good progress today. So looking in a little bit more detail at the situation for the leaders, well, this is this high pressure system that we're talking about, a little bit of a Christmas conundrum, let's call it, for a Maitre Coq, whether he can squeeze away in the downwind conditions away from this high pressure system, whether he can get through. Now remember, it's moving down to the southeast and will start to catch him, so it's all about speed and trying to get away. Not so many options really for Apivia and for Thomas Ruyon. They're going to have to route north all the way round, or try and get across the centre as it moves. All about the timing, it's all about how the models align, and we know that the models in this part of the Pacific are very different, particularly looking ahead to 2 or 3 days in front. So Boris Herman back here in Sea Explorer, they may even be able to have a little bit of a middle course, which we'll hopefully see now in more detail. So this is now the situation for Christmas Eve. So we see perhaps a little bit of a break, an option for Yannick Bestaven to get away, and then it's really about lateral separation. Charlie Dallin and Thomas Ruyon having to route to the north, and a better option for the boats behind. They don't have to avoid as much of the high pressure system, and so we could see a little bit of realignment between the chasing pack. So I'll just pop this animation and get it going. We'll see, so here's the high pressure there. So here it is, Yannick still managing to jibe down the exclusion zone, and because the high pressure here is sitting in the way of the Thomas Ruyon and Charlie Dallin, they're having to route to the north. This is all light winds, they have to go north, and this high pressure is moving away as well. So perhaps an option for the chasing peloton to get back a little bit, and all this separation closing up, because these two boats have to go north. But again, just to emphasize, this is very theoretical. It's based on one set of models just now, but it's going to be a fascinating week to watch on the leaders of the Vendée Globe. So Libby, do you think this could be a definitive stage in the race, or is there plenty more golf in the hole, as they say?
I suspect there's plenty more golf in the hole, as they say. But yeah, I think that final image that you showed there with the different routings, you know, I mean, I think it would be a long way north to go. It'd be interesting to see whether second and third take that on, because, you know, like you say, with the chasing peloton, you're almost better off just parking yourself in front of them and going, well, at least we're still in front of them, rather than taking a risk on something that you're hoping 5 days later is actually where the models say. And then, you know, and you've got that chasing front behind that will probably overtake some and cut some others off. So I think you'll probably see a pretty close bunch more than anything. But yeah, I mean, if Yannick gets through, then you could see a good break. And but equally, we've seen Miles wheeled back in quite easily, and all it takes is another little setup like this, and a fleet compresses again.
So you obviously look at the weather very closely yourself at home for the race and doing routes, do you?
Yeah, a fair bit. Every now and then, when there's something interesting coming up, I have a little fiddle and see what the options are. I mean, I think it's also always interesting, this part of the world, you sort of play with the models, but then there's a big thing that isn't modelled so well, which is often the sea state. And I think throughout the race, we've heard a lot of things about sea state, and how that then affects how people are having to sail their boats, which is a big thing. And also, you know, sometimes like the sea state actually favours a certain jibe, even if you're like, actually weather-wise you might potentially prefer to be on one jibe, but the sea state's so bad that, you know, you almost prefer to be on the other. And I think that's something that's also quite hard to fathom and understand, is the sea conditions as well, and the impact that they have, and exactly how well that's also modelled and taken into account when we run our routings.
So for sure, the lead of the Vendée Globe is going to be more interesting than the Christmas TV at home in England.
Yeah, more than yes, that's to be fair. And equally, not that we can really go anywhere. So yeah, a little bit of Vendée action will be pretty good.
Good. Now listen to yeah, Libby, I've got one question for you from the internet, and the question is, what tools do the sailors use in terms of downloading their weather? The different files they download, what are the different options?
In terms of the tools, I think they'll have an interface that allows them to download weather files and compresses them to keep them to a small amount, so they're not munching up data and running up their satellite bill. And I mean, each race tends to set up a weather package that people sign up to in terms of that program. And then also, you know, within that, there's different models for different areas. They'll most likely be looking at the European and the American model around this part of the world, because there's not many models available overall for when you're down south, and also the resolution's not as high. And they can look for models that are ensembles, which also extend pretty far, which is probably what they'll be doing when things are uncertain, to see if there's a number that, you know, to see if any are converging, to work out the confidence in the forecast. So I suspect those front guys will be looking at a bit of ensemble forecasting right now.
And how much harder is it being on your own, doing the modelling and running the routes than on a crewed boat, or indeed as a router?
I mean, well, I guess obviously there you've also got to make sure your boat's going quite quick, of course, at the same time.
In terms of the accuracy of the information you get and the time that you have to take to do it, and the output, you know, your actual route. What are the kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the time's the big thing, the time and the mental capacity when you're pretty tired offshore. Obviously, in terms of access to data, it's pretty similar. But it depends how much you know, if it's all fair game on how much you can download, then and your time aspect, then you're probably all right. But yeah, I mean, for sure, the number of routes you want to run and all that kind of stuff, you would be effectively creating shortcuts for a fair few of those things, and you'd have a reasonably set up a plan of how you do that, of what things are important in situations.
So Libby, just finish off with us. Tell us about the activities with the Magenta project and how you're getting on there. What's new there?
Well, I mean, we've got a really successful mentoring program going this year. We've sort of over 50 mentees on the program this year, which is really good to see. A lot of women looking at professional sailing and taking up the opportunity to get into the professional side with support from people within the industry. And that's a big thing for us, because we think that's as in a lot of industries, mentoring is a strong element to helping people fast track, but also develop in their career. So that's been really good. It's otherwise, obviously, with the pandemic, it's been a bit tricky to move a lot of our other projects forward, like a lot of the sort of female coaching and that side of things. But yeah, I mean, we're pushing hard to still open up the opportunities, and I think it's great to have such strong role models within the Vendée. And hopefully, when more sailing starts coming back, we'll see more changes across a lot of the sport. I think SailGP as well has made quite a strong move with opening up a female program within their sailing events. So I think that will also be super interesting to see.
Good, it's good news, Libby. Keep up the good work. Fantastic to talk with you. Hopefully you'll join us again at some point over the course of the race. There's quite a few days left before the finish. So thank you so much, Libby Greenhalgh.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
So that is indeed all the time we have today for our Vendée Live. If you join us tomorrow, our guests will be Jean-Luc Van den Heide for a few moments at the beginning of our programme. And we're also joined on the plateau by the skipper of Spirit of Hungary, Nandor Fa, who's in Les Sables d'Olonne for a Christmas. So he'll be joining us on the plateau. Any questions for Nandor, or indeed anyone else in the Vendée Globe, do post them on our Facebook, on our Twitter, or indeed on Instagram. Join us tomorrow.